to this war.
CNN's Eleni Jacos. Good morning to you, Eleni. What do you know?
Okay, so there's quite a few things happening here, and we've got, we're a month in, and it feels on this Saturday we've woken up to what is sort of like an escalation around the region. And this is really a fascinating turn of events. This was perhaps the wild card that everyone was sort of anticipating, because the Houthis have been very vocal in terms of supporting Iran in this war, but very quiet militarily. It's an Iranian-backed proxy group. They have caused havoc in the Red Sea and, importantly, in the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, which is the other huge maritime choke point, specifically after October 7th. We know that they can really divert a lot of traffic down the Cape of Good Hope. We're already seeing the Strait of Hormuz that is completely being choked off, causing, incredible crises on the oil front around the world. And now with this front opening up, where they say they launched a barrage of missiles towards Israel, this is clearly an escalation that we're seeing, as we're hoping on the sidelines, that President Trump and even the Iranians might be looking for a diplomatic off-ramp. What is very certain right now, that Iran has a strategic hold over the Strait of Hormuz, something the Gulf countries won't accept. And of course, President Trump is trying to get a coalition of countries to try and open that strait up, as we still see strikes across the region. Victor.
Eleni Jacos setting the table with reporting for us this morning. Thank you. All right, let's talk now about these developments and more. We're joined now by CNN military analyst and retired Colonel Cedric Leighton and CNN global affairs analyst Kimberly Dozier. Good morning to both of you. And Colonel, I want to talk with you about the new player on the board, and those are the Houthis out of Yemen, the Iran-backed rebel group. They fired their first missiles of this war toward Israel as we start the second month of it. First, an official with the group said that closing the Bab al-Mandeb Strait off the coast of Yemen is a viable option. We've focused a lot on the Strait of Hormuz. If they were to exercise that option, how would that change this war?
Well, that would be a big change, Victor. Good morning to you. There are certain things here that the Houthis have already done and some things that they're talking about doing. So in this particular case, they've obviously sent a rocket toward Israel that was intercepted. However, if they shut the Bab al-Mandeb, that is going to impact a lot of the global trade, in addition to what's already impacted that off. So if the Bab al-Mandeb is cut, that would then cut the alternate trade route that the Saudis have, at least in part. They could still theoretically go through the Suez Canal, but that is going to be a real problem because there are a lot of ships that go down through the southern aspect and down through the Bab al-Mandeb. So it could have significant impact on basically the alternate route that not only Saudi Arabia, but a lot of the other Gulf countries are using. And if that happens, then you will see even more perturbations in the economies of the Gulf states. For example, medicine and food supplies already being cut in places on the western side of the Persian Gulf. Those supplies could be cut even further if there's no alternate route going into those countries through Saudi Arabia. So it's a significant, potentially significant development.
Kim, what do you think explains the Houthis' month-long sideline here in this war, why they weren't in earlier, and what explains entering at this point of the war?
You could say that this is a strategic use of assets by the Iranians, but that sort of denies the Houthis any agency in making this decision. The U.S. and Western campaign against the Houthis, when they were regularly rocketing the Israelis, had really hurt the organization. The U.S. unleashed billions of dollars of munitions on the Houthis over the first year or the opening months of the Trump administration. And so when Hamas and Israel had a ceasefire, it was a good opportunity for the Houthis to bow out. They have been biding their time, but now you see, as the Iranians are running out of some of the munitions they have to fire, bringing the Houthis to bear adds pressure. As Cedric was saying, you've got mostly oil and gas shipments out of the Gulf being choked by the Strait of Hormuz. you have a lot of east-west container traffic that comes through the Suez and around the Bab el-Mandeb that would be impacted by this. So you start having a knock-on effect on global trade. And also, Cedric was mentioning in the Cape in South Africa, Singapore, et cetera, the alternate routes and harbors that are being used for this deflected trade are overwhelmed with all the shipping traffic. They're simply not built to take that much. All of that builds the costs, and the Iranians know that really builds the economic pressure on the Trump administration.
Let's talk about it now with retired Lieutenant General William Caldwell. He was former commander of the NATO training mission in Afghanistan. Welcome back, General. Let me start here with the Houthis. They influence or accelerate this war?
Well, it's very interesting. You know, up to now, they have remained out of the war because they recognize that if they do just what they did, Israel is probably going to strike back at them now in Yemen itself. In the past, they were a real threat. As you recall, they really did put a choke point on that. You know, there's the Strait of Hormuz, and then as we just talked about, there's the other strait that goes into the Red Sea there. And so those two choke points can really influence the entire flow of economic goods and oil across the world.
Yeah, the Bab el-Mandeb and what is still left to do. Let's play that.
It's not finished yet. I'm not saying it's sort of finished, but it's not finished. It's got to be finished. And we have another 3,554 targets left. And that'll be done pretty quickly. And then, we, you know, at some point, we're going to have to determine what we do. But they have, they've never seen anything like it.
3,554 targets left. The accuracy of that number aside, is that the right lens through which to look at this conflict, a count of targets in reaching whether or not the U.S. will reach its goal?
Well, I think as we all look at this, what's going on, what we're trying to do is drive them to the negotiating table, to cut a deal, as the leadership keeps saying in the United States. We want to bring them to the point where they're willing to talk, look at that 15-point plan again that was presented to them, you know, through the Pakistani government, so that they have the opportunity to, you know, agree to or make concessions so that they won't have a nuclear program again, that they won't have proxies across the Middle East, you know, from Hezbollah to Hamas and the Houthis. And so this negotiation, the pressure that is continuing to be put on them will be brought by hitting more and more of those targets. I mean, just yesterday, Israel hit, you know, the two nuclear associated targets there in Iran, along with steel plants, which the IRGC, their army uses.